Law enforcement, armed forces, and emergency response teams often work under hazardous conditions. In some instances, they can be exposed to harmful airborne particulates, which can lead to short-term and even long-term health conditions.
Today we're sitting on an outdoor shooting range, and it's where officers and soldiers spend a lot of their time. And you're exposed to everything that comes out of a weapon, and that includes lead, arsenic, chromium, cadmium, silver, and antimony. Some of the heavy metals that we know are carcinogenic to chronic exposure. In those environments, you spend weeks at a time firing tens of thousands of rounds. Not only are you loading and unloading your weapons, you're maintaining your targetry, tearing down and cleaning up, you're shooting often beside other operators and officers as well. So that's just an example of one of the environments that officers and soldiers are often in, where they're exposed to chronically high volumes of this particulate.
There's airborne particulates that are being aerosolized during training and in operation. Anything that's combusting, that smoke is entering the body and you're getting affected by those harmful contaminants. But even things like when you're shooting through glass, all of a sudden silica dust is being aerosolized. And silica is a known carcinogen. It ends up bedding in your lungs and you're ending up with silicosis because the lungs are basically just healing over those contaminants instead of trying to wash them out of the body. We did notice that there was a capability gap in the market for respiratory protection, where you have CBRN gas masks for those high threat environments. There wasn't really anything in the market for that low to medium threat exposure to airborne particulates.
What we're starting to see now is these studies which are proving this direct linkage between harmful particulate exposure and chronic illnesses. And so what's happening is that now our governments and militaries are starting to see this issue out there, and they're starting to provide funding for industry to develop solutions to counteract this.
There is currently a capability gap that exists with the available masks in use of those who are trained to protect us. Modern equipment can be effective as it pertains to filtering the air of hazardous particulates, but may interfere with operator weapons, equipment, and other gear.
Based on my previous place of employment, it was very common where guys would do routine blood panels, and the lead levels would be at such a heightened level that they would literally be put on the bench until that was rectified, and they would come down to a certain level that was more acceptable so they could function properly. Because when you say function properly, what does that mean? Are you able to perform your job well, or are you limited because there's an effect on your lungs? Or are you limited because of the knock-on effect of accumulation of training and the volume and the acceptance of being exposed to so much for so long? At what point is enough? A lot of different environments were often dirty, dusty, heavy amounts of exposure to explosives in confined spaces where the quality of airflow is not ideal. We always had eye protection, we always had hearing protection, but there was no standard on protecting the lungs.
Coming into the fire service, airborne toxins, contaminants, particulates, it's something we're very familiar with and taught. That's a lot of heavy work with a lot of heavy respiratory stress and a lot of airborne particulates in that environment. There's a lot of areas within the fire service that a product like this that's job specific could enhance the health of our other first responders like firefighters.
It turns out the rate of respiratory illness in military personnel versus the general population is roughly doubled. What happens is there's this latency, this 20 to 30 year gap of exposure versus when the chronic illness shows up.
Protecting those who serve to protect us is the mission of Ventus Respiratory Technologies, who are dedicated to the development of respiratory systems designed to shield those in the most hazardous environments. By providing a revolutionary product, those exposed to harmful particulates can now breathe cleaner and mitigate harmful exposure, while also being able to wear a mask that will not interfere with current soldier systems and weapons.
We're testing and trialing our TR2 respirator, which is a particulate respirator for soldiers, frontline officers, and first responders. Without this sort of protection to mitigate against the illnesses that come from it, the market is now rotating to understanding the need for it, and Ventus right now is poised to help with that. We're really addressing a gap of protection. The equipment that we've built does not exist.
When we started designing the TR2, we worked with Special Forces operators to really understand the soldier system. They've got helmets, they've got the ear protection, they've got a chin strap, they've got eye protection, they've got NVGs, night vision goggles. There's a lot going on. So our challenge was to design something that would integrate into those systems seamlessly, stay out of the way of weapon systems, allow you to get a proper cheek weld on your rifle, where current respirators in the market, they're very bulky, they're very intrusive, and they get in the way of doing your job.
The Ventus TR2 is a particulate respirator, and it's designed as a quarter mask. And the quarter mask allows you to have a really small footprint of protection on your face. We use a very simple head harness and strap design, which incorporate a neck strap for in the ready mode, and then a head strap for when you don it. The mask has an excellent exhalation valve, which allows for exhaled air to exit the bottom of the mask. The filter is placed in the front of the mask to allow for nice cheek-to-stock welds when you're firing a long gun. What you want to avoid is filters and other pieces of equipment being in the way of you being able to sight a long gun correctly. The filter is easily removable. The mask also has an excellent communication system. So there's an internal microphone built into the mask. And what this microphone allows us to do is to communicate to the two-way radio that the user may be wearing. The microphone is strategically placed outside of the typical breathing flow path. And so what we avoid is a lot of the loud breathing noises typically associated with full face masks. One of the key features of the TR2 is its ability to interoperate with other equipment. The typical user or warfighter has eye protection, ear protection, head protection, and these areas are already claimed by other pieces of equipment. What we've done with the TR2 is developed a solution which avoids all of that. I've spent my whole career in the respiratory protection business, and what I realized with Ventus is that they are serving a niche market for a very specific need that has not currently been met.
The mission of Ventus is to protect the warfighter and to continue to innovate and always be making better products.
At Ventus, we feel it's so important to tackle the prevention side of this problem early and to provide a solution that the operators will wear every day and not just when an emergency happens.